Well, good morning, Dr. Dave.
Good morning, Dr. Joe. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. Look like I caught you off guard. You just popped up on camera and like you were had your hand in the cookie jar or something.
Get my notepad to get our starting time down so we don't
Oh, okay,
offend our
got it.
viewers by going 47.5 minutes.
Okay, that's a good thing. All right, so we want to welcome you all back to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast, where me, Dr. Joe Hamlett, and my co host, Dr. Dave, we've said it before, trying to solve the world's problems. Not really, but trying to help
Just a
you,
few.
just trying to help you maybe figure out some things and maybe help you along the way. So we want to thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching on the YouTube channel or if you've picked another platform to listen on the audio version. But we do appreciate you tuning in, and it's been great doing these. So me and David get excited every week about the idea of getting here, sit down and chat. So thanks for tuning in. So today's topic is around that time of the year when we want to talk a little bit about being thankful, and what that really means to me and Dave. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to my man, Dave.
Thank you very much there, Dr. Joe. And that's my thoughts. So I'll toss it back at you. Just kidding. Yeah, so okay, being thankful. There's lots to be thankful for, Joe. We could
Yeah,
go down the path of family, we could go down the path of
absolutely.
work,
Yeah,
we could go down the path of our careers, not just work type work, but
right,
our careers. We could talk about our kids and relatives, which is like family. We can talk
right.
about our friends. We can talk about our health and the
Yeah,
fact that we're here. So yeah, I'd kind of like to. There, a kind of little funny sidebar on that one. I was visiting a family friend the other day, and a gentleman walked in, and he was walking by us, going into the building, and he said, "Good morning," and "Good morning. It was another beautiful day. Grateful to be here. Absolutely." And I said, "It's another day that we woke up on the right side of the dirt."
yeah, yeah,
And that's really what it
absolutely.
boils down to is, um, no matter how bad things get, they could always be worse, and they are worse in many places in the world, and even those really bad and worse case scenarios are better than other alternatives that are out
Right,
there. So
right.
um yeah, that's the little segue I'd like to throw out there. There's a few different ways we can approach it, and maybe we'll talk about some of them or all of them or just a couple. But I'm thankful for literally everything in my life, the good times and even the bad
Right,
times, because
right.
the bad times I describe as character building experiences. When we were in the military, and and some of my civilian jobs, it's things at work and in life can really get kind of crappy.
Right,
And
right,
and I still do tell my peers and colleagues and students and participants of workshops that you just got to be thankful because it could always be worse, and no matter
right,
how bad it gets, you're here, and to be grateful for the bad times as much as the good times, because that's really where the learning occurs. Understanding what to do right is one thing, but the character building piece is important, and I believe every opportunity, positive or negative, good or bad, indifferent, are character building experiences, and I'm very thankful for all the experiences I've had in my life because they've made me who I am. It's made me the husband, the dad, the friend, the peer, the colleague, the brother, well, I was going to say the sister. I guess I could be the sister in some cases, but depending on some people's perspectives. But it's just, yeah, I'm just truly grateful. And there was a point in my life, a couple times in my life, where I wasn't necessarily grateful, and I struggled with what's going on and why am I going through this. And when I came through it, I was stronger, and maybe I had a bitter view for a few weeks or months or years. But once I realized that that's in the past, and what did I learn from that? that really helped change my perspective and made me much more grateful for everything in my life, no matter what it is, even the simple little things I'm grateful for and thankful for. So yeah.
So
And
Dave,
yeah,
you bring up, and I didn't mean to cut
yeah,
you
no,
off,
you're good. You're
but
good.
you really did bring up the point that I think is most important about being thankful, and that is being able to, you know, take a situation like you say, bad or good, and being able to take something away from it or glean from it, and turn it into a situation where you did learn something, and
Yeah.
that you're thankful for. And I think that's the hardest part, that we could just sit back and say, oh, woe is me. And, you know, I mentioned this in a few episodes back about being a victim or a victor. I mean, every situation, again, whether good or bad, we can choose one or the other. We can choose to linger in that pain or whatever it is, or what's causing us that, you know, grief, and be the victim, or we can turn it around or figure out a way to turn it around and make it a positive thing. And I think that's goes back to, and we've talked about this before, you know, mindset, just
Yeah.
making that situation, or taking a really good look at that situation, because you said it before, a lot of, you know, we may think our situation is bad, but there are a lot of people all over the world that are in much worse situations than we are. And so being thankful that it's not that bad,
Hmm.
or it's not to the extreme. You know, I'll just take a quick example. You know, and I mentioned this before about riding my bike. I just, you know, recently had a spill on my bike where, you know, swapped skin with the pavement, and you know, I could have just tossed my bike aside and not getting back on it, but I learned something from it, you know, from that situation, because it could have been a lot worse. I could
Yeah.
not just hit my, you know, skin myself up, but I could have hit my head on the sidewalk. I could have hit my head on the curb, or broke a leg or an arm. So I'm just thankful that even though I did, you know, scuff myself up a little bit, but thankful that it didn't, you know, become much worse. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think attitude has a lot to do with it. And I know in some situations it doesn't seem like you're going to be able to climb out of a certain situation, or you know, it may seem more overwhelming to you, but just, and that's the way I view it, because, you know, like they said, we've all experienced so many different things, um, but but the things that he mentioned at the very beginning, you know, I'm thankful for my family, my wife, my kids, my grandkids, my brothers, sisters, just everybody. Just thankful again to live another day and see another day, another year. You
Hmm.
know, so it just, again, I try to use all of this as a positive versus the negative, because again, those are going to come to you all the,
Yeah.
you know, more than you'd like to know, or more than you'd like to be uh, in that situation. So the quicker you can turn that around, and gain something from it. Like I say, not all situations you're going to say, well, I'm thankful for that happening to me, but
Right.
at the same time, you can still look at it as that learning opportunity. What did I gain from it? Maybe I don't do it this way again or next time. So I think there's still, we can still look at it as being a situation where you can be thankful. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I remember when, uh, and we've been blessed and been very fortunate enough throughout our careers as a family, my wife and I, um, to do some um, interesting and neat things. And one of the things I got to do was when my son graduated high school, after he went from high school into the military, and after we came back from his military training, um, I took him on a trip out of the country, and we went to
Okay.
Mexico, and we visited some of the cool sites down there. And um, we actually were on a bus and drove through some areas in Mexico that were very
Mhm.
destitute. And,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, to see the kids and adults walking around partially clothed, and I say like,
Right.
maybe undergarments and a t-shirt type thing, or, you know, just the clothes were not in the best state of repair.
Right. Right.
And I remember my son looking out the window, and he looked back at me, and he said something to the effect of, "Wow, Dad, this really helped put my life into perspective."
Right.
And that's something he's held on to, and it's meant a lot to me because, with all the fun and the neat things that we saw, that's one of the little pieces, one of the little treasures I keep in my heart, because sometimes it takes people a long time, if at all, to realize how thankful and how blessed they are.
Right.
And that was the moment, that was his moment. And um, it was cool to observe as a dad. And then
Well,
there's,
yeah.
a couple of other examples I'd like to throw out there for being thankful. And, you know, some of us unfortunately have had the, fortunately or unfortunately, have had the opportunity to have been laid off or displaced with
Hmm.
in work in our
Yep.
careers. And in the moment, I tell you what, it can be scary, and it can be absolutely one of the shittiest things to ever happen to a person, especially if you're not expecting or anticipating it.
Right.
And,
Right.
there's a whirlwind of emotions, anger,
Right.
frustration, contempt, sadness, grief, confusion a lot of times,
Right.
because, why am I in this situation? What did I do to get here when I was doing my job so well, type thing? And sometimes it's just a financial decision from the company. But when you come out of that, you realize how strong you really are, and
Right.
how creative you really are, and how blessed you really are. And you're and you and hopefully you're thankful for that, because, as bad as things are in that moment, or the weeks or months or years that follow, you still got to have those weeks, months, and years to follow. And there's a thing that I've seen posted online, and it's more materialistic in some ways, but it shows someone, wow, I really wish I had that bike. And then the person on the bicycle says, wow, I really wish I had that car. And that person with the car says, I really wish
Right.
I had that plane, or I wish I had the job to get the bicycle.
Right. Right.
And it's
Yep.
like, it's one of those perspective setting moments. And then one that's a little bit closer, more recent, is COVID. And, it's had a huge and significant impact on a lot of people throughout the world. And,
Right. Right.
for those folks who thought they were struggling at that time, myself included, we learned very quickly how much worse it could get.
Right.
And even in
Right.
that worse state of condition that I was in, I was still on top of the world compared to some other people in the world. And so
Right.
that's something I always hold on to, is no matter how bad it gets for us, it could always be worse. And then I put myself in a position of, if I'm in my worst case scenario, how much worse could it really get? So when we talk about being thankful, a lot of it is perspective, and I'm going to also add in mental clarity, because to your point, being victim or victor, we're all going to go through the moment of, woe is me, oh my gosh, how do I
Right.
get out of it? But how you come out of it is the most important thing. Do you come
Yep.
out bitter, or do you come out thankful? And I would urge those of our viewers and listeners to really look at that perspective of thankfulness, and really understand how thankful and blessed you should be, because there are some people that would not come out of that. And, if we go to our military days, when we signed up voluntarily, we signed, there's the saying, you signed a blank check, and the dollar amount was your life. And we all know, for those of us that have served, at least one individual or more that have fulfilled that obligation.
Right. Right. No, I want to go back to, you mentioned the comment about your son, going down to Mexico and seeing people in a lot of cases at their worst. And
Yeah.
being in the military for a lot of years and traveling and going to different countries and then seeing different cultures. I again, I do have a greater appreciation for what I have,
Yeah.
surrounded by my family and being able to take care of them. So I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
understanding, and I think that's helped me be more empathetic towards people, just knowing that we have it good in a lot of
Yeah.
cases when we think we don't. So I just wanted to touch on that. So for me, that has been a huge um, learning and understanding that that's helped me along the way. But then I also want to go back to where you talked about, being grateful or being thankful, even though at the time, when you get different situations at your job where the companies went a different direction, you've had to, you've been let go, you've been, have to start over. And in my case with my family, we had to do that multiple times over
Yeah.
the years. And again, you initially you go through that, wow, why me, this sucks, man, so you go through all those emotions. But then, on the other side of it, you look back and you say, wow, we were able to overcome those things,
Yeah.
and to show how strong we are. So that has made me and my wife both very thankful that we were able to accomplish that and to overcome those things multiple times.
Yeah.
And so, but going back to the perspective piece. So a few years ago, a gentleman came up to me, a really good friend of mine, when I was still in the military, and he mentioned something along that line. He was trying to progress in his career, and for him, fortunately, he had been in a situation where he had never been laid off. He had never lost his
Mhm.
job. The company never downsized or moved away or any of those things. So his comment to me was, and initially I took it, kind of, it really pushed me back. And I was like, well, how can he say that? Well, his comment to me was that, I really don't know what to do or how to progress because I've never been in that situation before. I've never had to, overcome certain things. I've never had to try to get to the next thing because it's always been there for me. I've never had to try for it. So he said, I don't know what it's like to do that. And he said, and you had the luxury or something to that effect. He said, you've had the luxury or you've had the experience to do that multiple times. And my first response was, but that wasn't pleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I have gone through this more than probably the average person, but I viewed it as, wow, he's had it great. And that goes back to the perspective thing.
Mhm.
All this time I'm thinking, things have been great for him. And I looked at it in terms of he had a stable income. He had didn't have to worry about, or rug wasn't pulled off from under him and, he's let go or anything like that. But at the same time, he wasn't able to develop or grow because
Yeah.
he was never forced into that situation. And so when I really looked at it that way, I agree with him, that he was absolutely correct. And that I was thankful that it did give me, I knew I was more resilient. I knew I could overcome those things where he was now faced with this challenge because he had never experienced it. So he didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So he was coming to me for advice. And like I said, initially I took it as, well, it kind of sucks that you would refer to it that way, but he was absolutely correct. And after, that conversation, I really was thankful for knowing that, me and the wife and the family could go through these things over and over again. And because of that, now look at my kids and I see how resilient, how stable they are because they had to experience those things too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it goes, that perspective of, like you said, the commercial or the ad you saw where, one person said, I wish I had the bike, I wish I had the car, those types of things. That's really what it comes down to. What you see is, in my case, I was just looking for another job. In his case, he's now looking to advance. But it's the same thing. We're all looking for something, but it's the perspective of, why am I looking for, again, in my case, it was a need. I needed a job. I needed to take care of my family. So for me, it was all in. There was no hesitation. There was
Yeah.
no, sitting back, taking my time. It had to be done.
Yeah.
And in his case, like I say, he could take his time, have fun, enjoy himself, and then now put in a situation, not know what to do. So again, we look at it in our own eyes, and we see it totally different than that person next to you, or the person
Yeah.
that's maybe experiencing the exact same thing.
And
So
I think for many people, and I'm going to speak to the United States that live in the United States, I think a lot of people, or some people, maybe not a lot, but some people really don't understand the scope and complexity of what we're talking about when we talk about being thankful. And it's like, and how we can be thankful for losing a job,
right,
or, you know, being unemployed for an extended period of
right,
time.
yeah,
And I say that I'm thankful for those things because, again, they're character building experiences. But two, again, they could be a lot worse. I have friends and colleagues that live in several different, in a variety of different countries in Africa and in the Ukraine, and their daily lives with the upheaval that they experience, and sometimes for decades and generations, is nothing compared to what we have in the United States. We've never had a foreign invasion on American soil. Um, well, I guess you could say some of the civil wars technically, but but not in the current day and age where things shouldn't like that shouldn't happen, but they do. So
right,
when we talk about being thankful, we really have to put things into perspective on if this is the worst it could be, how bad is it really in the total scheme of things?
right,
And you know, some of us have had illnesses and injuries that have not been pleasant, and maybe we've struggled through some of those things, but they have made us stronger on the backside. And I'm not talking about necessarily physical strength, like, oh, I got COVID and they put me on steroids and now I'm, Arnold and I'm so huge. I'm not talking about that kind of stronger. I'm talking about the mental capacity to be stronger because
right,
we've endured those things and we've come out smarter. And, the qualitative experience that we've gained from that, you really can't put a dollar amount on. There aren't schools out there that teach you how to um, endure significantly tragic lifestyle changes, you know, or, you know, God forbid, dismemberment or loss
right,
of part
right,
of your faculties, So those are just life experiences that you deal with when you encounter them. And, for all the good and the bad that I've experienced throughout my life, I'm very thankful for every one of them. I'm not saying that I'd, sign up to go through those things all
right,
over
right,
again. Hey, next week we have an opening for another. No, that's okay.
right,
I'll take a
right.
pass. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Wow, that's a really old euphemism. But yeah, it's just I'm grateful that I've had those experiences. Some of them I would not definitely would not want to go through again. And when
Right,
you think about those experiences, good, bad, or indifferent, there's usually something underlying, like a lesson or a nugget that you glean out of it. And for me, the times that I've really had hugely significant things that have kind of like derailed, or I'm going to say paused my career, whether it's being laid off or displaced or being through a reorg or illness or injury. At the time that those things happened is usually the time I was moving the fastest during my life or career, meaning I wasn't taking enough time for myself or my family. And I was just, and as we say in the military, high speed, low drag. And I was just running on all 12 cylinders, the maximum speed. But like any vehicle, when you push it that far, that fast for that long, you're going to run out of gas and something's going to break.
right,
And
right.
it's how you come out on the other side of that that matters. And that's, I'm not thankful for the events or the circumstances, but I'm very thankful for the backside of things. Me and my wife have become stronger, my family's become stronger, more resilient because of those things. So
Dave, just real quick, you reminded me of, the first time where not necessarily the first time, but one of the major times when, the company closed its doors, and we had to move completely across country. And, up to that point, I had been working, like you said, I was working a lot of overtime, very rarely get, saw the kids or spent time with the kids. So even though we had to move cross country, didn't have a job, and I was out on unemployment for quite a few months, but that was probably the best time, for me and my kids. Again, not didn't like the circumstances as far as not having a
Right,
job or
right.
the income, but that was a time I could take a break. I could spend with my family and my kids, and I think I understood the importance at that time of, spending time with my family, because I had lost sight of that for a lot of years, working so many hours of overtime, and again
Mhm.
working 7, 12, 15 days straight without seeing my family. So
Yeah.
for me, even though it was a stressful situation and um, bad situation, it's still, I'm really thankful for having that 6 months with my family. To, we did some traveling, even, across a couple of states, and did some things that we had never done before. So
Yeah.
even though the situation um, started off as negative, it really did turn positive, and I think that was really the foundation for us to deal with situations that came up in the near future. So I just wanted to, you reminded me of that.
Yeah. And
So
and I'm gonna just throw out a couple of final thoughts. So when we talk about displacement or losing work and what to do with that extra time aside from job hunting and looking for work, my perspective is that work is always going to be there. Some form of
right.
work will always be there. It may not be the best job, it may not be the highest paying, but if you want to find work, you can find
Oh,
work.
absolutely. Yep.
What you cannot find are those moments with your family
Yep.
once those moments are gone. My
Right.
son being 16 years old was many years ago. So you have to cherish those moments with your
Right.
family, with your friends, with your peers, you know, husbands, wives, spouses, significant others, pets, yourself,
Right.
because those
Right.
moments that you don't invest in those opportunities, you don't get yesterday back. And
Right.
tomorrow
Right.
isn't guaranteed, another euphemism, but there really is some wisdom in those words when you think about it. And it's, you know, it, I reflect on that fairly, I shouldn't say fairly frequently, but often enough to help keep myself grounded and really aware and keep things into perspective, and and to really remind me to be thankful every day, not just during certain times of the year, but every day of every week of every month of every year, that we have. Because again, tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Right.
Tomorrow's not guaranteed for our friends and family. So you really, really have to take those opportunities and the and really make the most out of those when they present themselves. So
Right.
that's all I have to say about that.
Well, thanks for that, Dave. And yeah, I would say a lot of the same things you just said. I think the biggest thing is, again, our perspective on how we really look at things, in the greater scheme of things.
Yeah.
Again, we maybe think we're going through something really horrendous, and it may be for
And
us,
maybe
but
for that time, yeah.
at the same time, there's probably something 10 times, 100 times worse going on somewhere else. So,
Yeah.
but I do like the way you ended it, as far as taking the time to be thankful for what you have today, because you did say it, and it's the truth that we're not promised tomorrow. So, however, we can thank those people close to us and make sure they know that.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. And like you say, not just uh, one time of the year, but every day. Just let them know that you're thankful for them, and that what they mean to you in your life. So I think that's the most important thing,
Yeah.
is to remember, we only have so much time on this earth, and
Yeah.
the more we can show that thanks and appreciate those people around us, I think the better off we are.
Absolutely.
So with that, I think we've come close to the end of our session for today. So I just want to thank all of you, listeners, viewers, tuning in week by week to our podcast. And again, if you're getting something out of this, please share it with your friends, family, colleagues, peers. Uh, Again, they may not, every episode may not appeal to them, but maybe there's an episode. Now we're up to quite a few. So there's a library out there that you can kind of peruse and maybe refer to someone else. Because again, we're going to continue to do this. Whether we have one listener or one viewer, like I say, me and Dave enjoy just talking back and forth to one another. This is the highlight of our week. So with that, we just want to go ahead and encourage you, continue being your not so ordinary you.